Hello, everybody. Today I would like to talk about my journey as a strength coach. Ron McKeefrey does a nice job talking about this in his podcast. And, I just figured I would touch on mine just so you can kind of see the journey. I like to start all the way back in high school. I had access to some good people who were helping me along the way, and some okay programs. And looking back on it has really shaped and influenced me as a strength coach. So I started lifting when I was 13 years old, almost 27 years ago now. It was a very simple program, small weight room, and I trained really, really hard. I moved on to a bigger high school in my hometown, where I worked under my coach, who was Tom Myslinski Sr. And I throw in the senior because his son, Tom Myslinski Jr., aka Milo, is very well known and well respected in the strength and conditioning community. Little did I know I was being influenced by his son, who worked at that time in the NFL. He was an offensive lineman, played for a number of teams, and eventually became an NFL strength coach, which is what he does today. So I was being influenced by a very knowledgeable strength coach. After high school, I was recruited to go to college. I could either go on as a Division III football player or a Division I track athlete. So I chose to go Division I as a track athlete to Canisius College in Buffalo. Now, the funny thing is, the strength coach there, I very rarely saw him. They had a strength consultant named Paul Childress, who was a big West Side power lifter, or I should say conjugate method power lifter, who came in and he did some of our conditioning, did some of our lifting. And I followed that program for that year. And I got stronger, and I loved training and I loved being involved in weights. But life had other things for me, and I ended up transferring down to Liberty University. Liberty University was really the first time I had a strength coach. I was coached by Dave Williams and his assistant at the time, Neil Bryant, and they both helped me. My first year there, I exploded in strength, improving my bench press my first year there about another 30 or 40 pounds, and my squat went up 100 pounds in my first year there. That was my sophomore year of college. And I was pretty strong. My hang clean also went up. Coach Williams, I sat up in the weight room. There was an upper tier and a lower tier. He was downstairs training the football team one day. I was on the track team, and I was just like, that's what I want to do. I had previously been going the phys ed route. I talked to him. I eventually changed my major to exercise science, and I started pursuing strength conditioning, reading everything I could, muscle and fitness. I think back then I was starting to read Fred Hatfield and his website, Dr. Squat. Some of that stuff took me to Louis Simmons and Elite FTS, and that stuff introduced me to Buddy Morris and Coach Myslinski or Milo, and James Smith, and they had recommendations, and that took me all over the place from a education standpoint. And I was reading all that stuff in college. Did my internship at Binghamton University under Brian McGovern. I was there for a semester. I spent a ton of hours with him, and he was a Springfield graduate. So if you know anything about strength conditioning, that's kind of the place to be. He had some of the strongest athletes I've seen to this day, especially without a football program. So he did a nice job there. From my internship, I went to grad school down at Florida International University. I took a semester to kind of get used to school, and then I walked in the weight room with the strength coach at the time, Lou Deneen, and asked him if I could intern. I helped with football. I helped with pretty much everybody. And eventually the assistant that was there at the time, he left and suggested that I take over the role when I graduated as the assistant. So I was able to get my first assistant position there under Lou Deneen. FIU was going through a number of changes, so we were transitioning up to Division I. I was there kind of in the transition year, and then their first full year at Division I, our first full 2 years, I guess it was, at Division I. And I saw a lot of things, a lot of turmoil as people were getting hired and fired, and it was a very nerve-wracking experience for my first year as a full-time strength coach. I then had an opportunity to go to Murray State University to be primarily a basketball strength coach, working with their men and women's basketball team. I also worked with their tennis and golf teams. And that was really a fun experience because almost every single one of those teams won a conference championships in my 3 years there. So a number of my athletes got to go on to NCAA tournaments, and I learned a ton. I also realized I had a lot to learn. I ended up moving on from there after 3 years, and I took a position working with the United States military. It was a position in which we were really kind of an injury prevention team. And the number of teams were set up all over the country. There were 3 on our base, and we all looked different. And I think that was good and bad because the military got to see a lot of good and a lot of bad ways to use strength conditioning professionals. We succeeded in our goal. They realized they needed to change some things. They made those changes. So then I moved on to Buffalo State College. It's a Division III college in Buffalo, New York, bringing me back closer to my hometown. And I have been here for the past 7 years. And this has been a unique challenge because not only am I the strength guy, the head guy, I should say, but I'm usually the only guy doing it. I've had some part-time assistants over the years. But right now I don't have anybody, and that has created a lot of unique challenges that I might not have had to face if I'm a head coach at a Division I school. And again, that might be a different video, but that's where I'm at now, training Division III athletes and helping them become their best. But that's been my journey so far. For 15 years, I've bounced around to a number of states: New York, Virginia, Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and back to New York again. And I say all that so you understand that, especially being a collegiate strength coach, moving around is part of the job. A lot of times you can't stay in one town unless you have 5 colleges in one town. But overall, that's my journey. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to hear more about my journey or more about this, like and subscribe. Thank you very much.